So just to
And
respect everybody's time, I guess, who have joined, we'll get started and latecomers can always catch up with us. So we just have a few intro slides just to get you familiar with EMC, Engaging Math Circles, in case you are not yet familiar with us. We are, as our name implies, a math school. We provide enrichment math programs to students. This is our first of hopefully many college admissions talks by one of our guest partners, friends, experts, Mariya Genzel. So just a little bit about EMC to get you familiar with us as an organization, and then Mariya. Um, we are a math school. I would say we're probably less traditional in the sense that we're not, how would you say? We,
we,
yeah.
well, we operate in enrichment and we teach through conversation. We believe that the students should speak before the teachers do. And we believe that even their smallest or biggest mistakes is a great conversation opportunities. And then um, we just think math is for everybody, and our philosophy is to just see how we can tailor and how we can guide any kid to discover math in their own way. And we try to achieve it when we teach in small classes through conversations with questions, with things that are not necessarily just rote memorization of formulas. That's how math is usually viewed in school. So we want them to feel they're making discoveries, even when they're learning those uh, basic arithmetics mechanisms and laws of math. And this way, we believe it can be made fun because they're part of it, they're discovering, they're talking to us. We love talking to them and hearing them. And that's how we make the whole story interesting. So that's it.
One of the best things about EMC, personally, as somebody who works here, is our classes, as Anna mentioned, are very small. So it allows your students to really engage with the material and dig a lot deeper than most schools will have time for or even consider. There's a lot of probably every class every day I will learn something new from our students, and that's really exciting for me as a teacher to see. Because we are targeting our older kids, our high schoolers, especially, I believe this session is targeted for our juniors and seniors who may think it's a little bit too late, right? And need to look at how to best package what they have. We do have, for your consideration, just some classes that are targeted for the older kids. We have some SAT preps coming up in the summer and the fall. Winter schedule is yet to be determined. And we have a lot of AP options as well. We'll send you these links at the end of the session, but we also have many others besides these highly focused classes. And the nice thing about us being a very small school that really tries to work with our students in a very intimate setting is that if you do go to our schedule and you don't see a class that you want, reach out to us. If you want something, we will try our best to work with you to meet whatever goals that you have. Okay, so why we are here. So, we are here to discuss with Mariya um, her insights about how to best package your application for colleges. Mariya has spent over a decade homeschooling her two gifted children who are now both in college, or one is attending college and one will be a freshman this coming year. So she has a lot of firsthand experience as a parent, but also as an educator, as a mathematician, a computer scientist. She has an MBA from MIT, and her background in the professional area includes founding startups, working in grassroots political organizations, and helping other parents navigate this really complex, ever-changing field in college applications. So with that, I will hand over the reins to Maria. And
Thank you, Stephanie.
we do have our chats and our Q&As enabled. So if parents have questions for us, feel free to place them there.
While I am sharing, if everybody could put the grade of their student into the chat so that I know who I'm speaking to, that would be really helpful. Although, obviously, hopefully a lot of them are going to be juniors. Let me start sharing. Can everybody see my slide? Okay, perfect. And I can look into the chat to see what grade. Okay, I see a lot of people are looking ahead. Okay, so just so you know, this is really focused on the experience of juniors. If you're not a junior, you can use this knowledge next year for you if that's the case. By junior spring or senior fall, most of your application is going to be already set because you have already taken all the classes and done a lot of activities. And so how do you make what your student has stand out? Now, of course, it sounds like it's scary because you already have everything, but it's actually a sort of liberating because you just need to focus on how do you build a realistic college list, how do you frame what you've already done, how do you avoid common mistakes. And of course, there's only so much I can cover in about 30 minutes in Q&A. So this will be pretty fast, but I will try to hit some of the most important points to consider. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure that okay, yes, I can see that the slide has progressed. So number one thing is start early. And if you're in 11th grade, start now if you haven't done so already. If you do not have a preliminary college list, a testing plan, essay ideas, recommend a strategy, start right now. The time from now until early and even regular college application deadlines will disappear much more quickly than you realize. So start now, front load your time, assume things will take longer. Yeah, it's like I'm always feel paranoid that because I'm looking at the notes and not at the slide. So I'm gonna make sure I'm talking about the slide about which I'm intending to talk about. So I'm going to assume that none of you who is a junior is going into art, theater, or music because you would have already started. For those of you who are earlier in this timeline, the reason I say this is because if you are going into art, music, theater, and some other programs, they require auditions or some kind of other preliminary work where you will start in your junior year. You probably, I mean, you would have started in the fall setting up these appointments. So I'm assuming that none of you are in fact going into art, theater, music. So by this point, if we were talking in May of your junior year, you should already have a preliminary college list. Now, why is that important? You'd say, well, why can't I wait until the fall? Well, different colleges have different application requirements, and you must know what they are in advance. Now, visiting college, if you can do it, not everybody can, but if you can do it, it is really key to understanding where you actually want to go. Watching videos online is just not the same. So physical in-person visits, you have to plan them ahead. So if you've already visited some colleges, that's really great. You're in good shape. If you don't have a list, do it right now and start looking at schools. So how do you create this list? Unless you're already a student knows exactly what they want, you should think in several waves of college lists. So the very first list should be exploratory. And you can actually go to nearby schools if you don't have time, because you need to make some decisions first. So choose schools that are really different from each other. So things like big school versus small school, urban school versus more isolated school, school that has really strong sports and like school spirit, kind of things that you can determine by a visit. Um, and you can just check out what's important to you, because for many children, for many students, like their gut will be telling them, this is not the type of school that I want. Even if in advance you might think, oh, it can be any school as long as it's like in the top 10 or whatever. Often you will have like feeling about it, and you should probably listen to it. So kind of determine which school is a no-go. And so use that information to create a second, more realistic list of schools to visit that are actually acceptable to your student. Now, I am not a huge fan of summer visits, which of course, if you are a junior, that is mostly what you're going to have at this point. If you're not a junior, please try to visit them in the spring of your junior year, or at least to start some of them. And the reason for this is because in the summer, you can really only go on an official visit, on the official tour. And the official tours are going to be a propaganda. Now, that sounds like a bad word. It's not necessarily a bad word, because you actually want to know what colleges say about themselves, what they consider important things about themselves, because it will help you in the application. You will want to know what colleges consider important about themselves. But it doesn't give you any sense about what the school is like in reality for the students, because the classes will not be there. The people will not be there in little groups on the quad talking to each other. Like for example, I can tell you, one of the colleges we went to, it was dead. There was nobody was talking to each other, and we could see this. We're like, huh, nobody really comes across each other. Everybody hurries from class to class, and they don't really talk. And so that's, you know, if that's important to you to go to a college where people interact and make friends outside of just, you know, classes, that's something that you would want to see. The other thing that was really, really key to us, and not a lot of people do it, is I think it's really great if you have a chance to sit in on the classes, because it is a big part of, you know, college. And if you don't have a chance to do that, you can't really judge the interaction between professors and students and what it's like. And again, you can only do this when the classes are going on. So I will strongly recommend that you leave some visits for the fall if you can do it. It is harder because there's going to be so many things going on in the senior year, fall. But if you can, just, you know, try to do it. So the thing, as I said, sit on classes, walk around unguided, observe real campus life. So the really important thing when you visit, or if you don't visit, but you're just going to check out colleges online by watching the virtual tours, doesn't matter which one you're going to do, very important. Have a running ranked list. Once you looked at a couple of colleges, all the information will start to be like jumble in your head, and you're not going to remember what you thought about each college. So whenever you visit a college, immediately write down your thoughts, pros and cons, and update your own ranked list. So you should always have something that's number one, number two, number three, or whatever, and just move them up, because it will help you decide on which school you will want to choose as early decision school, if that's going to be a part of your process, or later when you're going to be making other decisions like which school to visit, or even which schools to drop from the list. So if you don't do this, trust me, you will forget what you thought about the schools. So just keep a running list. Now, I'm actually sure, at least if you're, you know, junior or senior, you have already heard what makes a good college list. That's a balance between safety, target, and reach. So I'm not going to go into that, but if you have questions about that later, I can address that at the Q&A. Now, if you're a junior, the summer is your last big chance to make any kind of impact on your application, or I should say on the contents of what goes into your application. So unless you, again, we're in May, so unless you suddenly get an amazing internship opportunity, I strongly recommend considering a passion project. So what is a passion project in this context? It is something that you can realistically do without relying on like stars aligning for you or other people making an exception for you, or some kind of enormous luck. A passion project at this stage is something that depends on your own effort and your hard work. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you should choose something where you don't depend on other people being necessarily a huge part of this. It will be something that contains an externally facing component. So it's not just you sitting at home and working on something invisible. It should be something that demonstrates your leadership, your service, your interest, and your story. So here are some examples. Suppose you're interested in quantum physics. Well, you can create a YouTube interview series with researchers, graduate students, industry professionals about how they entered the field, what they actually do daily, misconceptions about physics, exciting questions, etc. Suppose you love history. You can organize a one-week summer camp for elementary or middle school students about daily life in ancient Greece. Suppose you're interested in languages. You can create a Languages of Our Community oral history project, interview immigrant grandparents, bilingual students, local business owners about like language loss, multilingual life, translation, etc., and try to collaborate with local cultural groups if you can. If you're interested in environmental science, adopt a local creek or a park and document environmental changes over the summer, like water quality measurements, biodiversity counts, etc., and present your findings to the local city council. If you're interested in entrepreneurship or businesses, you can run a free small business help desk for local businesses for marginalized communities. You can design flyers or social media, research legal issues, and so forth. You can see all of my examples. You don't need like to land some kind of a contract or win a award or a place in a prestigious program. These all depend on your own initiative and like hard work. So those are the best ones because you're gonna only have a summer, so you should get started. So the idea again is to create something real, involve other people, demonstrate initiative, and connect it naturally to your interest that you're trying to demonstrate to colleges. Next point, don't overtake the SAT or ACT. I'm going to use SAT as an example, but it can be whatever test you decide on. After you reach about 1530 on SAT, from the admissions perspective, you're in the same bucket as somebody who got 1580. It's just not worth your effort to take it and take it again. I know some people who take it like 7 times. Your time is just not wisely spent in that. Take it once or twice or sometimes 3 times. So here are some exceptions. So some places offer full scholarships to high-scoring students or to national merit semifinalists. Again, if you're a junior, you already missed the boat on that one, of being national merit semifinalist. Now, this is not as common. It used to be actually a lot more common to get full rides for these kinds of things, but it's not as much anymore. So you should look at some of the colleges that you might be interested to see if they still have this program. Another consideration, which might be the case for some of the people in this particular session, is that specific sections for specific schools matter. So if you're applying or have your eyes set on Caltech and MIT, pretty much everybody who applies there has 800 on their math SAT. So if you're really keen on applying to those places, this is where I would say this is an exception where if you think you can realistically get 800, you should try to retake your SAT because otherwise you will not really have as much chance of getting into those schools. But again, this is really an exception. Now, if you have not yet taken SAT and you're a junior, take it right now in the summer. I think there are 2 or 3 sessions of SAT in the summer, because this will give you a chance to retake it in the fall. Now, again, the fall is going to be really busy. So unless you really have to retake it, I would not recommend it. You should only retake it if you think you can get a high score. And again, you already got 1530. You have, I forgot, like I looked at the statistics, but you have actually a pretty high chance of getting a lower score the second time you take it because it's such a high score, right? So just because you're sure you can get a higher score without jeopardizing other things like your grades in the fall, which are much more important than the SAT score that you're getting. So again, don't like obsess over it. Another point that a lot of people miss, this is the time to nourish your recommenders. Now is the time to do, by the end of the year, you know, we have about a month left for most schools, make sure to thank your teachers. Ask them if they can be your recommenders for college and write down their contact information. If you can, try to get their personal contact information because sometimes teachers leave school and you still need them. And so this is, I speak from a personal experience because sometimes you're like, I have no idea what happened to my math teacher, and you're stuck because, you know, what are you going to do? You may meet some new teachers in the fall, but it's much harder because you'll have much less time to make a bond and make an impression, especially if you are applying for early action or early decision, because you'll just have a few months, and that's usually not as much time as you know, as needed. Also, something to do by the end of the year is you want to write down everything that you remember about the class. And what I mean by that is things that you liked in the class, things that you've accomplished in the class, interesting realizations, and favorite moments. You will use this information in the fall to write a recommendation request letter. And it will also, might it also come in handy for essay writing and interviews. So such a letter that you're going to write to your recommender will include as much information as you can to help your recommender write the recommendation. Because you should not assume that they remember who you are, or they remember your accomplishments, or they remember the cool stories about you, no matter how much they seem to like you at the moment. You tell them all these things, include your resume, include what you liked about the class, the connections that you made to other material. Of course, they will choose what they want to write, but at least you try to guide and help them. If you don't have any recommenders this year, and again, if you're earlier, if you're not a junior, please make sure it's part of your strategy, because for some schools, it is a requirement. And even if it's not, that's a way to really stand out. So if you are a junior without somebody to recommend you, make sure you're very explicitly targeting making friends with teachers in the fall, because you want to make sure you make a relationship and you stand out. And it should not just be among teachers, because many schools allow extra recommenders. There are not just teachers, but could be coaches, could be your vocal teachers, could be your like pastor, other people in your life who know you from some aspect that you want to share. I can't remember, but I feel like Brown had like 8 possible recommenders. I remember, I think one college just had like 8 recommender spots. So go and meet people and make impressions. Okay, so these are the things you need to do before the end of the year, before the end of the school year. Common App opens in August. By the way, if you can open the Common App at any time, but in August it rolls over, like it flushes. So just know that, like, it doesn't carry over. But you can start looking. Usually, I mean, it might be closed now because I think they close it like kind of like for lunch or whatever before they open it up again, I think. But I think right now it should still be, you should be able to look at it. So there are sections in Common App that are just dry information, so that's not as interesting. I mean, you have to fill everything out, of course, but there are some sections that in which what you write really affects how colleges sees you. And those are the things that we're mostly talking about here, the things that you can actually change between your junior year and senior year. Each of these gives you a chance to express a lot of things about you. And one thing that people don't do is often they don't use all of the word count. Now, you should use what you're given. So, if you have an organization name, don't just say the name, describe it to help drive the awesomeness of this organization and give yourself more room when you describe what you do in the organization. I feel like I have, no, do I have oh yeah, I do have an example. Okay, I forgot that I have another slide. So here's, for example, so some people just say teacher when it's being asked about the position. Well, you can say teacher and curriculum developer, paid position, so that you use up all of the word count, character count that is given to you, and you express more. Or, instead of saying model UN, you can say the exact name of the organization, and if there's anything special about it, and provide the URL so they can go and check it out and find out more. Just like in the resume, you should use strong, active language, and you should center accomplishments. So sometimes people go into a lot of trivia that seems like an important detail, but you only have so many characters. So really be picky about the kinds of things that you put in the description of your activities that really make you stand out and be unique and different, or express who you are. All right. As I said, I'm going pretty fast. So if you have questions in more detail, we can talk about that at Q&A. So what are colleges looking for? Obviously, I'm going with the very broad strokes, and this is obviously very biased towards selective schools, as opposed to, community college. Community college does not care about any of these things. You can apply tomorrow. So broadly speaking, the colleges are looking to see that you have increased rigor from grade 9 to your senior year. So if you're somebody who has taken multivariable calculus in grade 9, that's great, but what did you take in 10th grade, right? So for many of these things, they want you to take all core subjects in an increasing rigor all 4 years. So same goes for foreign language, same goes for English, even if you're not somebody who's going into English major. And the reason they're looking for this is because they want to see you challenging yourself and grow. Now, it doesn't have to be as strong a jump in rigor if this is not your subject this is not the thing you're interested in. But it should be like you're not just taking it easy. The other important thing is to know is that you actually get compared to people in your school. So if you go to a school where people take 2 AP classes, nobody will expect you to take 30. On the other hand, if you do take 30, not that I'm recommending this, I do not. But if you do take 30 and you come from a school where people take 2, you will definitely stand out. But usually it's the other way around. You come from a school where people take 6 APs and you've only taken 2. You have to know that you will be judged. Now, does this mean you have to go and run and take as many APs tomorrow? No, but you have to know that you'll have to figure out what to say in your application, maybe explain why you haven't taken it, or have other parts of your application that will counterbalance the fact that compared to other people in your school, you have something missing. And this is obviously very different for homeschoolers because most of the time they basically get compared to a bucket of 1. There's an asterisk there, but generally homeschoolers have it easier in this sense. Like if you're coming from a really competitive school, you have, you're in some sense at a disadvantage. And the other thing they're looking for is that you have a narrative, that you have something that tells people in a coherent way who you are, what you care about, whether activities that you've done support your story. So if you're somebody who says, I really love physics and I want to do physics, and you've never taken a physics class, it's going to look really strange to them. Now, not everything that you do has to be so pointed, and but you should have some way of telling people a story that makes sense to them. Essays. So there's a lot of concern about essays, and people say, what should I write my essay about? And I say, you can write about anything you want. That's not what matters. You can write it about yesterday's shoes. The thing that matters is your insight that you have a personal voice that comes through the essay, that you display like really an ability to reflect about your life and your experiences, and you show vulnerability in this ability to look at yourself, that it's very specific, it's not just generalities, and obviously that you write well. It could be about cooking, it could be about books, it could be about family, it could be about music, organizing. Really, you can like literally just open a random page in a dictionary and pick something out of there. And that's not what matters. It's the other things that matter. College essay is a type of a genre of writing, and you should understand what that genre is. So you should read examples to see how students weave together many different strands of who they are. I like college essay guy examples. There's many. If you search for like the best college essays or the essays that got people into Harvard, Yale, or whatever, you'll see examples, and you should check them out because you will see that it's not like it's a special type of writing. It's different from other writing that you've done in the past. My common essay strategy. There are many different ways to write. And if your student is already like a good writer and they can just sit out and bang it out, just let them do it. But if they're stuck and not sure how to do it, this is how we've done it. One is sit down and brainstorm things about yourself. This is important. It will come in handy for all sorts of things. It will come in for when you're going to be writing activity section, when you're going to be doing the interviews. But try to just sit down and like, what kind of things you're proud of, what kind of things that you're good at, what kind of things you've experienced, what are your favorite classes. Just sit down and like vomit as much on paper as you can, or speak to your parent if that's the better way. Some people are better at speaking than writing. Then you should sort this list and pick at least 3 to 6 things that are must mention this about myself, because they're either core to who you are or they're unique to who you are, because both of these things are important. And then this is the step that sounds like it might be a waste of time, but it could be something that really helps you, because again, it's a genre and many people don't have practice doing it. Pick 5 essays out of the ones that I mentioned before that are like really nice essays, that are different essays that look different, and spend at least 15 to 30 minutes thinking and taking notes. If you were to write an essay that is structured or themed this exact way as your favorite essay, what would you write about? How would your essay look like if you were to structure it the same way? So, for example, suppose the original essay is about a Puerto Rican grandmother and the influence of her food on the life of the student. So you maybe could write about your Russian aunt and the influence of her shawls on your life, right? And you could be like, what would each paragraph look like? If the original essay is about the person's father getting their first piano and what the music gives to that person's life, you could write, as my student did, about a linguistics book that his mom gave him and what linguistics give them. Now, the important part here is not just to write down a few words. You should really try to make an outline of such an essay. And the reason you're doing this is because you're trying to practice thinking of how to connect different parts of who you are from part 2 in a creative way. It really, like for many people, they're just really drawn to like a narrative, chronological story. And that's not what most of these essays are. They are a lot more like interweaving of different things, and it takes practice. If you've done that, you should take a few days afterwards. What did I say? I thought I had made a note about this. Okay. You should take a few days and then come back to it. You should take a few days because you'll, like the ideas will percolate. And then it is possible that one of these will really appeal to you, and that's what you go with. Sometimes not. Sometimes you'll start one and you're like, no, this doesn't work. I need to start with something else. But it really will give you practice in doing something like this. Oh, I do have it in my notes. I have it on the slide, but not in my notes. Okay. So the last thing that I want to say about the essay is start it early. Again, it will take longer than you think because you will start and you realize it's a dead end. There's nothing to go here. You want to give yourself many chances to review and revise. And again, the time between now and the application deadline will just disappear much more quickly. In the fall, you'll be doing schools, papers, exams, project. You'll be handling applications. You'll be interviewing. You'll be maybe taking tests. So ideally, you will want to have a solid draft by the end of the summer. We did not have that because, again, things take longer than you would like. But if you can shoot for that, you will be really happy with your fall in your senior year if you can do that. Don't forget interviews. This is something that is a little different from the time if you were applying to colleges in this country, at the age that you are, it probably has changed from the time that you were doing it. Nowadays, very few schools require interviews, although there are some schools that do require interviews, but that's not at all common. Most of the time, if there is an option for an interview, usually liberal arts colleges, you have to pursue it yourself. You don't get an invitation. You have to be the one to schedule it. You can already, for many schools, you can already schedule this interview in the spring of your junior year. Although I think for most people, that's too early. Unless you're just like a complete natural at interviews, I would say, don't do it in the spring because you're probably just not quite mature enough to really do a good job with that. Nonetheless, as you create a college list, check to see if they have an option to interview and schedule it. You usually don't need to have applied to the school to schedule an interview, which is really interesting because you can actually use schools to practice interviews. We have done that. As the application season heats up, a lot of these spots may become much less convenient or disappear completely because, again, these are optional. So if you don't schedule them and they don't have it, you're out of luck. Of course, you don't have to do an interview, but remember, that's another way you can make an impression. It's also invaluable as a life skill. So a lot of the things that we discussed today, if your student does them, they practice something that they will use later in life. None of these things will be just for college applications. Start your interviews at schools that you like less first, because as you practice, you will get better at them. So you don't want to like blow your shot at your top school with your interview. To prepare, I recommend creating an interview book. The interview book contains as many possible interview questions as you have time for and answers to these questions with stories, reflections, examples. It's really hard on the spot to come up with, give me an example of when you worked on the group project, or give me an example of a time you had to change your mind about something. It is really better to practice the things. I'm losing my language. To practice in advance. This interview book will also be useful later for like internship interviews, scholarship interviews, jobs, or maybe even some of the supplemental essays if you're applying to schools that will require more essays. And my kids have used them as they were applying to college, to job interviews later in college. And one final main point. Schools, absolutely pay attention to your senior year. Please do not undermine your application at the finish line. There are two dangers in your senior year. One is you put a lot on yourself and your grades suffer, or you submit your application and decide your school is over and your grades suffer. The schools actually care about this. They pay attention. Your school will send an update to your college in the spring, and it would be a shame to screw it up at this late stage. So make sure that whatever you do, your grades do not suffer. Okay, this is question time. So let's see. There's a couple of things I actually want to mention before we get to questions. This will be a lot of work. Yes, it will be a lot of work. I'm not going to say it's not. But if you start early and you stay grounded, you'll be fine. One thing I recommend, and I did this for both of my kids, apply to a rolling admissions university first. So you can do this in the fall. My younger one applied to Dominican University right here in California. My older one applied to University of New Mexico because they had a fairly good linguistics program for a safety school. You apply, and in a few weeks, you get accepted. And so from that point, you can be assured that there is at least one school, one university that accepted you. It's probably not the one you're going to end up going, but I hear from people like, oh, what if I don't get accepted to any school? This way, you have something at the beginning of the fall, it's already checked off. So it'll make you feel better. Let's see, are there questions in the Q&A? I don't see it right away. Let me just see. There's two questions. Okay. I am a little biased about going into business and finance because I have an MBA. And if you apply to an MBA at some of the top schools, you will see that people who get an MBA almost never have a business undergrad. And they don't take people from business undergrad to go immediately into MBA program. And the reason for that is because a lot of places want you to have some kind of other competency. So if your kid can do economics, math, statistics, computer science, pretty much anything else, and business, they will be better off. Now, some actually of the top schools don't even have undergraduate business majors, I think for that reason. The other thing to consider as you're looking into business and finance is if you want to land on Wall Street or like consulting, they recruit from very specific and often very limited number of schools. So if that is important to you, you really want to try your best to get into some of the schools that these places recruit from. Like, not that this is the only school, but like UPenn is one of those schools where they actively recruit. So this is something to consider. Now, California obviously has a lot of options. The only thing I want to say about the California schools, and I'm assuming by California schools, you mean like UCs and Cal Polys and those kind of things, is that they have become more and more competitive. And so they're no longer like a gimme. Like it used to be, you are in the top 10% of your school, you get good grades, like a B plus, and you can be guaranteed an acceptance. Now, your UC Davis, your UC Irvine are very competitive. And so Cal Polys are really hard to get into nowadays. So as you're looking at these schools, you have to know that it's not an easy call. Now, I want to mention something else about the California schools is because I think a lot of people assume that the reason they need to apply to California is because out-of-state tuition is expensive. You don't really know how much university is going to cost until you apply and get accepted. Because in many cases, well, I should say in some cases, out of state schools might give you either a full scholarship or they could give you a discount to match the in-state tuition. That has happened to a couple of schools that my kids apply to. You can't really tell, basically. So I wouldn't dismiss out-of-state schools just for that reason. I mean, you might do it for other because maybe you don't want your kids to go far away, but not necessarily for the financial reasons. Let's see. How many AP courses? I feel like I've kind of answered that one. Now, I would just say don't put them on your kid unless your kid can handle it or finds joy in them. In some cases, AP courses can be just this really a slog and not fun at all. And as you're going through school, you don't want to completely kill your desire to learn. And that can definitely be the case for some of these classes. Sometimes they are taught by great teachers. So if that's the case, you want to take advantage of that. And again, you want to get good grades. Grades matter. Rigor matters, but grades matter too. If you take all AP classes and you get C's, that doesn't get you anywhere. That's not something you want to do. So as I said, the way to decide this is to look to see at how many class. This is a public information. I mean, or you should ask your school if you don't have access to it, because they have it as part of their school profile. What is the average number of AP classes that students at your school take? And then you can kind of go from there and make decisions from there. Remember that if you were taking AP classes in your senior year, unless you're trying to get a placement, nobody cares about what your grade on the senior year AP exams is. Something to keep in mind. My kids did not even take AP exams in their senior year for any of the AP classes they took, because from the college admissions perspective, they don't look at it because it's too late by the time they made the decision. I think the questions are, Stephanie, are these the questions from the form?
These were the questions that were pre-submitted.
Yes.
If we missed, if you're an attendee and we missed it, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see if there's anybody who wants, if they have a question, because I know I've seen those questions before. I just want to see if anybody who is here has a question that they want to ask. Yes, Madhura.
Yeah, thank
Hopefully
you. This is really useful information. I have a question about pre-college admissions. So, I have some kids that I've heard, especially from, really competitive high schools, they want to have like pre-college, getting into a good school like Carnegie Mellon and doing their like summer program and this and that. How useful do you think that is?
Generally speaking, not at all. Now, there are some complexity here, but a lot of people think like, oh, you get into a pre-college, at Carnegie Mellon or whatever, and that gives you a leg up. It does not. The reason is for those schools, it's usually just a way to get more money. I mean, a lot of the times these are not taught by Carnegie Mellon professors or Brown professors or whatever. They're taught by outside professors. It's not the same classes you would be taking there, generally speaking. There are some exceptions. There are some programs that are pre-college that are free. You get there by merit. Like there are some programs at MIT, for example. These are extremely prestigious and they actually matter. But generally speaking, if you're applying to a program and you have to shell out like $7,000 for it, it gives you very little. Now, the thing that it does give you is you're doing something in the summer. So if you have nothing else that your kid is willing to do in the summer, this is better than nothing, because better than watching YouTube, right? The other thing that you might consider those programs for that could be valuable is if your kid has never done anything outside of home, like if they've never gone to any kind of camp, if they've never had to do something outside of being with you. So in that case, they get some executive functioning practice. So in that case, it's also valuable. But pretty much anything you can do, like working, getting a job, is more valuable than paying, thousands of dollars to take one of these pre-college programs. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a difference between taking AP classes and being enrolled in middle college or doing a dual enrollment instead of the APs or
Yeah.
together with APs? Or what is the difference between the two in terms of how colleges view them?
It kind of depends a little bit on the college. And it depends on whether they, how familiar they are with your school, how familiar they are with the middle college, because, college admissions people are people, so they prefer things with which they're familiar. And some, generally speaking, they probably will be familiar with both if this is a common option, because as you might know, the college admission counselors, they get assigned a region. And unless this is their first year, they would have seen students from this school and these community colleges before, and so they would know how to compare. My understanding is there's not as much difference. They have pluses and minuses, so it kind of balances out. Again, you want to get a good grade. It helps if you have recommendation from the person, like if you're taking it in person, which, by the way, I would recommend. I think it's not really fair, but I think online classes don't get as much recognition. Not that this would necessarily come across, but if it does, I think they get a little dismissed. Because I don't think in the transcript it indicates this. At least I've never seen it being indicated. I would just say it depends. So I would go by what your student would prefer. Like if they like the teacher, if they like the subject, because some subjects are not going to be available as an AP exam. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to bring up, the grade in the AP class matters more than the exam. I don't want to say exam is irrelevant. Like you get an A in the class and then you get like a 2 on the exam. This is something you might have to explain. But like they really prefer that you show that you can persist in it, and get good grades throughout the year than just like one day. So that's something to keep in mind.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, Lilia. Lilia, I can. Yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry, I have a question. I don't know if it's relevant for others. My daughter, so our family moved to California from Seattle in January, this January. So my daughter, she's sophomore, and she started here school year, the second half of the school year. In all classes, for her it was new. And in other classes, she has no problems, but she took math honors. But in Seattle, she had AP and different program. And from all classes, this math could be honors problem for her. I'm just, for me, I'm interested in your opinion. Should she drop this class and maybe take classes during summer? Not to have bad grade in this class. What do you think?
What grade is she in?
She's sophomore.
Sophomore. That's not so. Just FYI, like if you get a B or even sometimes a C, it's not the end of the world as long as future shows upward progression. So if you get a B in 10th grade and then you get an A in a similar subject in 11th grade, it's fine. Obviously better not, but it's like not the end of the world. It shows character growth, shows that you've learned, et cetera, et cetera. I would say, right now it's May. So are we talking about dropping a class now?
Yeah, she spoke with her advisor. She's very worried about final exams because she missed the first half of the year. And
is this a school or is this
school?
oh, I'm surprised you can drop a class this late.
Yeah,
What's gonna
advisor said that she can drop this class now.
does it show
Before,
up on the transcript, or does it show like withdraw, or like, do you know?
I don't know, unfortunately. He
Yeah.
said she can drop this part of the year
Mhm.
because for the first part she has 96 or something. But this part she could have not a good grade. That's why
But like 76 or like 89? What's not a what's, you
around
know?
80, before 80.
Okay,
And
so you're saying so pass could become a C if, you know, if not
she
working.
even said, even if when she will apply to the college, he can provide her with the letter that she moved to this area during the middle of the school year.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
mean,
it will work or not. And we are just choosing to drop this class and take classes during summer.
would she
Or
enjoy it? Would she like taking this, or is this would this be like a huge chore for her? Like, would she enjoy the subject, or would this be just like to check the box?
previously, she liked this subject. It was math previously, but now for her, she's surviving and she
Mm.
is doing homework with her dad every day, spending a couple hours during every evening. So for her now, she's surviving. She doesn't like it. She wants to drop it. And even
Okay.
she has planned to a couple, maybe during months, to take this class and somehow to finish this class. So, what is your opinion?
Yeah. So I'm obviously loath to say anything because I don't know the exact details, but it sounds like it would not affect her GPA to drop it. And
Okay.
if that's the case, I think it's okay. I mean, like it wouldn't be bad, let's put it this way. Because you want to make sure your kid survives mentally to go on and still, be able to do this. If you think
Mm-hmm.
that she can take it in the summer, one class at a time is much easier to do. And if you think it might revive her desire and interest for the subject, so just check with the advisor to see what it looks like, what it's going to look like on the transcript, just so that when you're going into this, you know all the facts.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Sure.
Maria. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? You have me for like 10 more minutes.
There's
I
a,
oh,
there's a question in the chat too.
Okay.
And the Q&A has us do now.
Okay, yes, Sala.
yes, so I put the two questions in the chat. I'll just read them. Um, so one is, how much do parents push kids to apply and not to miss deadlines and to be more proactive versus kind of pulling back, waiting for the child to take the initiative and perhaps miss a few deadlines and then learn their lesson? Like, how punishing is this? And my son is going into 10th grade next year, so we have a little bit of time. And the second question is, how do parents manage their anxiety regarding kids, applying or not applying, or like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So obviously, the first question is it depends, right? It depends on your philosophy of life. I can tell you how I thought about it, but it will depend on you. It will also depend on the relationship that you have with your child. Because, for example, you might wish that you are more involved, but your kid might not be in the position to accept it in any way. In that case, there's not much you can do other than try to hire a specialist to take advantage of that. To take care of that if you can. We did not have honestly good experience with this. We did hire a college advisor first time, and it was just complete waste of money because he didn't actually do the thing that we thought he would do. And while we did fight a bit with my older kid about this, it wasn't like deadly. It was manageable. So the way that I think about this is like how they say, oh, just throw the kid in the water and they will swim. Well, most people don't actually literally do this because your kid could actually literally drown, right? Even if you do throw it, you usually do it with some support. So this affects their life to a really big degree. And I feel like it's not in some sense really fair to just expect them to figure out this enormous complexity filled with things they've never done before. Like, for example, one of the steps, I didn't really go into it, but like one of the things when some colleges ask for or accept resumes. If you've never done a resume, it's a completely different thing. And it would help your kid if you sit down with them and kind of took them through what resume is like and help them remember things about themselves, because many times they will not remember something that they've accomplished. And I don't see anything like wrong with that. I feel like it is okay to still be part of that support. And as you know, the kids, the executive functioning doesn't get formed until about 25, and your kids are not 25, right? So I think it's okay to support them as long, well, not as long as, I mean, it depends on you. Maybe you want to help them do every single thing. But the way that I thought about this is it's a learning opportunity. And my kids learned so much through this process as I supported them through it. How do you create and manage a big multifaceted project? How do you set up this Excel spreadsheet with all these schools, and how do you keep track of all these things? Why would the kids know this unless they've done something like this before? They would not. You might not know how to do this. You might have to figure this out together with them. So I have definitely been very proactive in this and definitely involved. I mean, again, if you're going to be scheduling college visits, you can't, you have to be involved with this unless, you expect your kid to buy all the airplane tickets and go there by themselves. So you'll have to be involved even just on that kind of level. I think it's okay. But as I said, you have to make sure you are not completely killing your relationship. So if you cannot do it in a way that still has you talking to each other in the morning, step away, because it's not worth that. Hopefully that answers your question. But I guess it depends on how you think about it. I've definitely, other people say, oh, if my kid is not old enough to manage that, then they're not old enough to go to college. I mean, I happen to disagree with that, but it can be different people, different strokes for different folks, kind of. How do you manage parent anxiety? Again, that depends on what kind of person you are and what kind of things help you. The thing that helps me is to have a plan. To have a plan and backup plans. So that actually helps me to manage my anxiety. This is why I mentioned applying to a rolling admissions college, because having that one, I was like, okay, one checked off, right? Like one something checked off. I had my kids give me a promise, and I helped them tremendously to submit all applications by Thanksgiving. So we had a trip planned for Thanksgiving, and I said, you are submitting by Thanksgiving because I want to go on this trip and I don't want to be working on these applications on Thanksgiving. And by the time December and January rolled around, when a lot of people are riding around with chicken with their head cut off and trying to finish these last minute applications, I was like, this is so nice. It's so good. The other thing that helps manage this, and this is really important, is to have a really balanced list. Because if you're going to be unrealistic about your list, it's going to be so anxiety inducing. So make sure you have enough things, more than people say that you should. Because some people are like, oh, just apply to 5 colleges. Okay, that could work for you if you're not somebody who is prone to anxiety. I am. And so we apply to 20 schools. So as I said, just depends on kind of what kind of person you are, what kind of things help. But I think being involved, following this process, assisting your kid when you can, understanding what the backup plans are, I think that helps. And starting early. Hopefully that
Thank you
answers the
so
question.
much. Yes, it does. Thanks.
Were there other questions? I wasn't looking. How important volunteering is. Okay, so I did not really go into this, but there are, I think, 2,000 schools in the United States. I mean, probably more depending on how you count them. Vast majority of these schools are not competitive schools. So for these schools, it does not really matter. Probably the grades matter, probably some classes that you take matter. But like extracurriculars, not so much. In fact, if I remember, one of the schools, like one of those safety schools we applied to, there was not even a room in the application to list anything that you've done that wasn't like academic. However, if you're here, I'm going to assume you are interested in some of the selective schools. And for those schools, it really matters. So how do schools that are selective schools, and by selective schools, I mean the schools that have at least at most a 30% acceptance rate. So if your school has 30% acceptance rate or less, I think I'm trying to remember what is the most selective school to which we apply to. I think 4%. Yeah, I think that was the 4% acceptance rate. We didn't get into that one, by the way. Got on the waiting list. So what are schools? What are those? How does the college admission process looks like? There are two stages. Stage one, they look at the grades that you got, the classes that you've taken, the rigor of those classes, and possibly your test scores. Once you meet whatever threshold they have for this, you're in the second stage. And so in that second stage, it's a lot more murky and it's much harder to know whether you're going to make it through the second stage. The first stage, you have some more objective things to look at because every school releases the data of like what is the average GPA, what is the average test scores, things of that nature. So how do you get from the second stage to the acceptance? So one thing you have no control over, like zero. Those things are called institutional priorities. So institutional priorities are the number of, history majors they want to see this year. If they if they bought another school that has a music school, then they're trying to fill up that music school. They'll be looking to accept more music students this year. You don't have control over it. You don't have control over what order they're going to look at the applications at, and they might have already filled their quota of California students by the time they get to your student. You just don't have control over it. You just have to accept it. It's just what you're going to live with. But you do have control over how your student comes across as who they are. And that's what volunteering and the essay and just activities are. So does it have to be literally volunteering? Does it have to be something where you quote unquote save orphans and whatnot? No, I mean, you're going to see some students who get into MIT without having done any volunteering, right? That's because they have, wrote a published paper or whatever, or they, solved the Fermat's theorem. I cannot use this example anymore because, it's already been proven. But this is we come to talk about what it matters in life and not just college application. I'm a big believer that the kinds of things you do to create a great college application are things that also grow your student as a person, as a citizen, as a scholar, as a human being. So I would say you should try to have your kid do some volunteering because it is good for them to do something that is good for the planet or other people or something like that. Like to give you an example, both of my kids did two things. I mean, they did more than that, but like two big things that would count as volunteering. Both of them taught, they were both teachers, and that is such a great skill. Like one of my kids is a special needs kid, he's autistic, and it is so good for somebody like that, but anybody, but especially for somebody like that, to practice being out there and delivering something to other people. The other thing both of my kids did was political organizing. Again, they were responsible for about 200 people that they had to guide in a specific way to make a difference for this country. It was good for the world, it was good for them, and it was great for their college application. Does that answer your question, Alexandra? Don't know if she's still
Yes,
here.
it does. Sorry,
Okay.
I was going off mute. Yeah,
No, don't
Thank you
worry
so
about
much.
that. I mean, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
like a lot of these things, it's like, it depends, right? It depends on, if your kid is completely like objects to this and they don't want to do it, it's what it is, right? You have to go to the war with the army that you have. But if they're open to it, you should try it. It's good. Anything else? I have about 3 minutes and then I have to run.
Any advice for homeschoolers?
I think Stephanie and Anya, I think we might do another session for homeschoolers just because it can actually kind of take up a whole hour for this. As you can imagine, both of my kids are homeschooled. One we homeschooled from grade 3 to all the way through high school, another one from grade 6 all the way through high school. So I do have a lot of experience with that. Let me ask you a question. Do you homeschool through charter or PSA? Because it makes a difference.
It's a charter. In my son, he's an 8th grader, and we just started this year an online charter.
Yeah, so in charter school, you have actually a lot less cool things that you could do as a homeschooler because your charter school is your school. So a lot of the things that I talked about are going to be pretty much the same. It's actually not that much different because they're your school of record. Now, and this is actually part of the reason why a lot of people who go into high school as homeschoolers actually quit charter. They go as PSA because one of the things you can do as PSA is you get to present your student in the best light possible. You get to write your counselor recommendation. You get to write the transcript. You get to write the school profile. So you have a lot more control over how you present and sell your student as a PSA than as a charter. For charter, there's not as much. It's very similar to everything else I talked about because they're your school.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, but we can go into more because there's some complexity there. But yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear more.
Yeah, you can bookmark that, guys.
Yeah, we will gladly have you, Masha, talk to our parents and not just our parents again. This was fascinating for me, even though one of the kids already is in college and the other one is on the way.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna end on saying it will be okay. I know it's like horrible saying that. When people said that to me, I absolutely hated that because I was like, how do you know? What if my kid is special and like my problems are super special? But like keep it, make a plan, have backups, realize that the road can be really weird and unusual and this is not the end of the world. If your kid doesn't get into the school they want, if your kid doesn't get into any school, your kid gets all F's their senior year, there are other paths, there are other things that can be done, and you never know where exactly the road goes. It's gonna be okay. Just breathe. It's okay. All right, guys. It was nice chatting with you all. Anna and Stephanie have my email. You guys can share it. If you guys have any other questions, you can email me. I can try to address them to the extent that I'm capable. Good luck to everybody, and good luck to your students.
Thank you, Mariya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariya. Good luck to your kids in colleges. No, one of them is in and the other one is just starting, so it's a fascinating road. I want to just add for parents, since Mariya mentioned this, had an idea that having a passion, how did you call it? A passion project? A passion project helps for colleges. We
are you
opening.
pushing people to be part of your quest? Yes, they should do that.
Yes. So we just had a student of EMC.
I'm gonna run though.
Yes, you can run.